1. Hey friends, what's up? Welcome back. My name is Shayda Campbell, and this is the first video of 2024. That year still sounds weird when I say it. I'm like, that can't possibly be right. Anyways, in 2024, you're going to see a little bit more of a casual vibe around these parts and this YouTube channel right here. What am I saying? Doing more casual videos with a little less editing, a little less polish on them means that I can produce more videos. And I think that's a good thing, and I hope that you think that's a good thing too. So we're going to get right into it today. I've got some like real first day back vibes. We just took a few weeks off with Sully, our 2-year-old, to really just enjoy Christmas as a family and like just take some time together, and it was so nice. And even though I do a lot of creative projects on my time off, I didn't make a lot of time for painting or drawing. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that if you have a toddler or multiple kids running around. So we're just getting back into it. We're easing in, and we're going to ease in with a little bit of gouache. Now, if you don't have gouache, you can use watercolor paint for this tutorial, but I get a lot of questions about how to use gouache and, will you like it? If you are into watercolor, is this something you're going to enjoy? I think the answer is yes. So grab a tube of gouache or just your watercolors, or watercolor pan is fine too. A little palette or bowl, a small round brush. Here's a number 4. I might use a couple different brushes, some water and a paper towel, and a little watercolor sketchbook, and let's get started. Okay, got my tea. We're ready to dig in and paint. This is a great exercise if you haven't really been painting over the last couple weeks or maybe the last couple years. It doesn't matter. It's nice because we're not trying to do a large painting. We're just doing a practice page of flowers in our sketchbook. We're going to see what gouache can do, how you can implement it in a way that's really similar to watercolor, but also how you can do some stuff that's really different and very opaque. Gouache is a highly opaque water-based medium that is similar to watercolors, but it's just much, much more opaque. So there's more versatility with it, and it's great to use in combination with watercolors. If you haven't tried it, but you love watercolor, I think you're going to like it a lot. And all we're going to do is a really fun floral practice page. So it's like a little bit of painting, a little bit of illustration maybe, all that good stuff. And gouache, when you take it out of the tube, it's like the consistency of toothpaste. And you are the artist, so you are in charge. You get to decide how much you want to water it down. Now, you don't want to use it right out of the tube. It's just way too thick. It's going to be really, really difficult to work with, and it will be quite opaque even after you've mixed in a lot of water. But I always, when it comes to gouache, get questions like, oh, I think I mixed in too much water. I don't think I did it right. And the truth is, you're the artist, so only you know what is right. So if you want a very, very, very transparent look, then you are going to mix in lots and lots of water. I'd say the only wrong way to use it is like right out of the tube, because it's just wasting your paints, and you simply don't need to use it when it's that thick, even if you do want a really, really opaque look. So what we are going to do today is make some floral shapes. We're going to water our gouache down, make some floral shapes, and then we're going to add all the detail with the same gouache, but we will just have it much, much more opaque. You'll see what I mean. And the color I'm using is beautiful cobalt. Cobalt is so, classic and beautiful. And I just love it. It's a favorite of mine. So we have this very transparent gouache, basically looks like watercolor. And what flower should we start with? Let's say a marigold. That's even, see how opaque, see how dark it still is. I could mix in more water. And for my marigold, I should have used a larger brush for this, and then I'll use the smaller brush like when it comes time to add the detail. I am just making like a lumpy circle, and I'm trying to move that medium around quickly so that I don't get any lines where it has dried before I was ready for it to dry. So there we go, messy, lumpy circle. That's pretty. We can even mix in more water because that's quite dark, especially when you think that I want to add detail on top of this and I want the detail to really stand out and look beautiful. So we're looking for some contrast. Let's grab a slightly larger brush. I'm not going to go up too much. I'm just going to grab a number 6. That was a number 4. And gosh, what flower would we like to paint? Why don't we try something like, maybe a geranium. I'm a sucker for a geranium. And oh my goodness, we still need more water. It still looks dark to me. So for a geranium, I sort of, when I paint them, I just do a bunch of lumpy bits, a bunch of little petals in a cluster. It's almost like you're painting little flowers, like you know how you would paint a flower with 4 or 5 petals, something like that. But you're mixing them all together and just making it kind of blobulous. Okay, so there's my cutesy little geranium. And then the geranium, I'm going to give him a big old leaf. So we'll just make another random funny shape and maybe join it together with a stem or 2. There. I don't want to do too much detail right now. I'm just trying to do blobs and whatnot because I will add the detail with the much more opaque gouache. So if you're thinking to yourself at this point, wow, Shayda, that just looks like watercolor. It basically is. When you water gouache down, it becomes very, very much like watercolor paint. So you can see how versatile it is to have in your kit. And it really allows you to be much more graphic, I guess, because we're going to add almost like an illustrative touch to these when we go back and do the second layer. What would be another good flower to paint? How about like, ooh, I know a good one. That would be really fun to do, like super, super transparent. Would be a dandelion. Let's put you up here. Like a dandelion that is about to blow away in the wind. There, cute. Maybe we'll make 2 of them. Oh, it needs so much water. And especially when you're coming from watercolor, you just think if you mix in this huge amount of water, it's going to be like so light. But with gouache, you still get quite a bit of color. So there, I'm making these fluffy looking circles. And, you know, they would have their little stems, although the details like stems and stuff I am going to put in later. And maybe like a shaggy leaf. So we'll just do like a shaggy leaf shape. The nice thing about painting in this way is that we get to be really, really messy. And then we're going to add all the detail later. So if you're like me and you're much more comfortable with a pencil or pen in your hand rather than a paintbrush, this is a great way to practice your painting. Okay, awesome. What other flower should we paint? Just adding a bit more water. And then why don't we try, we're doing a lot of round flowers. Why don't we do a pansy? Which I like to start, oh my gosh, that's so dark. I like to start with that bottom petal for the pansy and then give her 2 petals on the sides. Yeah, that bottom petal I made a bit too dark, but it's gonna be fine. And then kind of put that, that last petal or petals peeking out from behind. So there's your sort of pansy shape. Remember, doesn't have to be perfect at this point, clearly. We'll fix it later. Fix it later. And yeah, I guess I could go a little darker and maybe give the pansy her leaves, which are quite rounded. Like there's a cute little leaf. We'll put another one right there. With leaf shapes, you want to be very perfectly imperfect. You know, are you looking at the leaf from the side, or is it kind of curved, or maybe there's part of it that you can't quite see? So just get very loose. Let yourself go when it comes to the leaves, you know, and the flowers for that matter. Both shapes can be very loose and messy. What else could we try? How about we do a little carnation. I just painted carnations over on Patreon. I am going to try and do like quick sketches of some of the birth flowers this year. So if you're interested in extra tutorials, and I'm still doing my like polished content over there, go on and check it out. It's patreon.com/Shayda Campbell. And yeah, this month, because there's a bonus video every month. You don't even know what I'm talking about. At the start of every month, I put out an extra video over there for that community. And I did a carnation quick sketch with watercolor and pencil crayon. And of course, the carnation is the January birth flower. So I'm just making like another messy circle. We've done a lot of those, and all the details will emerge when we do the more opaque gouache. So carnation, we did a geranium. I kind of think like 1 or 2 more would be cute. Why don't we do a little, since we have done a lot of circles, a lot of just big random circles, we could do a little snowdrop. I think that would be cute. Or lily of the valley. Yeah, I'm going to try lily of the valley. And I'm going to go like as light as possible. Basically, I could probably just use the water. Have them kind of curling in here. I'll just start with one little circle. Kind of take it out at the bottom as if it's a little bell. Little oval, I guess. And then guide that paint out at the bottom. Little oval. And guide that water out. Oval, and water goes out. Push it out like that. You can always, you know, do more later, you know. And maybe one more. There we go. That one's going to be fun to add little details to. And then the leaf could be darker. I feel like I'm not going to be able to make a nice movement. We'll give you a big old leaf. There. This feels like first day back to me. I'm a little rusty. I just feel like my hands are just like, what is painting? This is hard. But really, this should be a nice, easy, gentle, like chilled out exercise. That's what it's supposed to be anyway. So don't let it get away from you. Don't get stressed about this, because we're just opening up a little sketchbook. It doesn't actually have to look good, right? It's just practice. It's just for fun. It's just to see what your medium, what your paints and products can do. I know so many of us purchase paints or any art supplies, and then we're just a little intimidated by them. We don't know how to use them. So just consider this one, just file it under learning how to use gouache, learning what gouache can do, so that never again does anyone have to ask like, Shayda, I think I used my gouache wrong. Like, I don't know, only you know how you want to use your paint, if you know what I mean. Okay, I think maybe 1 or 2 more flowers to fill in some space. Something kind of tiny would be good. Why don't we just do some, like a little wax flower or something like that in here. I'm just doing some tiny little blossoms. Ah, see how dark it gets if you're not careful. So different from watercolor, which often dries lighter than you're expecting and always looks so light and so delicate. Just doing some messy shapes, and they can be really messy, as I've said, and we'll figure it out later. we'll figure out what this is later. Right now, we don't necessarily know. That's okay. Yeah, there we go. Whenever I do these little 4-petal flowers, I always kind of like to do some little V shapes or heart shapes as well. Boop, boop. That's fine. And do we need like another one over here or something? Meh, let's just leave it for now, because I tend to be a bit like fill in every bit of space, and then I don't always have the balanced composition that I'm seeking. Even with my practice work, I'm usually also trying to practice composition. So even when I do like my 50 doodles, like 50 summer doodles on YouTube, I want all the doodles to look nice together on the page. Or with these flowers, I'm trying to make a pleasing 2-page composition. It doesn't always work out. Some of them don't look balanced when I'm done. Sometimes I fix stuff in post, like for a thumbnail image, I'll like move a flower or something. But anyway, it's a good idea just to practice composition anytime you're practicing your painting or drawing. Okay, now for the fun part. We've seen what gouache can do as far as taking it to a really transparent place and using it and playing with it just like we do watercolor. Basically, we've used it as watercolor thus far. Now we're going to work with it kind of more as I normally would, which is using it when it's very opaque. So you can see here, I'm still mixing up a paint that is very, very watery. So as I said, don't bother using it right out of the tube, you'll just waste. Even with a bunch of water mixed in and a very watery consistency, you're going to have a paint that is beautifully opaque. And if you use a nice small brush and you're in control of it, you can add some wonderful detail to your paintings. And what I want to do right now is create something that looks almost like I've drawn on top. So let's give our marigold a little stem. That's a good place to start our practice. Maybe a little bit thicker there. Give our marigold a little leaf as well. I'm going to leave a little line down the center just as like a detail. I like that. And we're going for something that's very graphic, very easy. Now what I want to do is make this flower come to life. So just make sure that it's dry, which it is. And I'm going to start by marking center. And then I am going to draw some little petals. So I think I'll start with 4. So if it's easier, do the top and bottom ones first and then put in the side ones. And you can see mine are, kind of sketchy, and sometimes I've lifted the brush and the line isn't all the way there, and I like that. That's what I'm going for. You're just dipping just the tip of that brush in, and we'll continue going around and adding a sort of wreath or crown of these little shaggy marigold petals. And you'll see when we do the carnation, the marigold might have been like a scary one to start with. If you're like, I can't draw like a bazillion little petals. You don't have to. When we do the dandelion and the carnation, you're going to see how we can just use little scribbles or lines to also show beautiful detail, and how easy it can be to really capture a flower without doing a lot of fine detail. But what I like, I love drawing, I love illustration. That's my background. Watercolor, I'm much newer to. So I love feeling like almost like I'm working with a pen or a marker, and I'm just going to like draw this flower. Like, I don't need to paint this flower. I'm just going to draw it. That to me is comforting. And if you're working with a paintbrush that's small enough, I think you can kind of easily achieve that feeling. Now I'm doing some of the petals on the lines a little darker over here on the left, and then over here on the right, maybe I loosen up a bit and just, you know, go like put a few lines, put the outline of a petal like that, or kind of the top of a petal, but we don't actually have to complete the look of this flower, we don't actually have to draw every single petal. The nice thing here is you want to kind of figure out your illustration style, your painting style. You know, do you like something that's a little loose like this? Or do you want something that's very, very detailed? That's up to you. That's kind of the fun of it. And maybe I put a few, I need it really opaque now, really dark. Maybe we just put a few lines on the leaf. And I love how that looks. A few dots even. Dots can show just that enough texture there. Great. Now you can see why I wanted things so light. You know, if that blue was a little lighter, those lines that we've taken the time with would really stand out. Unfortunately, it's sort of like dark blue on this medium blue, but whatever. Let's move over here to our dandelion so you can really see how great this contrast can look. So for this guy, let's start with the leaves. I'm going to do a line down the center of each leaf. There we go. I'm going to thicken up the stems. Da, 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 da. Ooh, I like that. Join those together. Yes, awesome. And then we'll just put some little lines on the leaves. And all of a sudden, they look so detailed, and they don't just look like the messy blobs that we painted but moments ago. And then I want to make sure that I'm really in control of the paint for this, so be sure to blot your brush. But we're going to go around the outside of the circle, and we are just going to do a whole bunch of tiny little lines. And it doesn't need to be a perfect circle. You don't want them to necessarily meet. See how I'm leaving space in there as well. Some are a little longer and thinner. And then we'll go from center. If it's easier, you can mark a center point. And we're going to do another wheel, I guess you could say, of lines. There we go. This is fun. Remember, it's practice. So if it isn't perfect, that's fine. You know what? I think it actually needs that center point. Yeah. And maybe you can see the stem back in there a little. Yeah, I like that. Okay, let's grab some more paint. Why don't we start this guy with his center? And then blot, and then here we go. Some nice, long, thin, delicate lines. Some are a little darker, some are a little wider. You know, they're all a little different. Okay. Ugh, I just want to illustrate a storybook, and it's all cobalt. I just use one tube of gouache and I do a whole book. Who's with me? Okay, that's fun. And you can, if you've done some lines really light and thin, you can even go back over them and add to them, something like that. That's pretty. And don't underestimate the power of a few dots. So that will also add to that really light, ephemeral quality of a few little dots and dabs. Okay, my dots are like messy lines. That is not good. This brush is probably getting old, but there we go. A couple little dots goes a long way. Okay, how about the geranium? So this one's going to be fun. I'm going to start in the same way where I'm just going over the branch and the stem, and I need to kind of add to it to show that, you know, there's like these connecting branches. Branches are not really the right word, like stems, I guess. And then we'll go over this guy. There you go. And then we're going to just do these kind of blotchy leaf thing. I think that looks good. And then what I want to do is pick a spot, any spot, and just put a little circle. And actually, just by doing a couple of those, the whole thing starts to look a whole lot more like a geranium. And then what we can do is something similar to the marigold, where we begin to actually sketch that little flower in. But the nice thing about gouache is we also can do this, where we just make a couple of the petals darker. So just by doing that, do some that are just lines and some that are more like a brush mark. All of a sudden, we've added so much, and this formerly just blobulous mess is really starting to look like a flower, like a geranium even. This guy needs a little more dark paint. There we go, just a few more spots. Okay, let's draw a little flower over here. Let's draw one right here. Right here. You get to kind of go and puzzle it out, like where does a flower belong? Where do I need another petal? Where do I need an outline? Or where do I just need the shape of a petal? Where do I need the center of a flower? And you only need a couple of those. You do not need to put dots all over. It will start to look weird. There, I think that covers it. That's a good looking geranium. I think the last thing it needs is just a little bit more shading, which, as I said, can just be like a brush mark. Like bop, bop, bop. Let's make you a little darker. There. Awesome. Okay, this is fun. I'm having fun. Are you having fun? Let's move over here and do our pansy, which I'm sure you know where this is going to go. We're going to get that really concentrated, dark, rich, opaque cobalt. And we get to just go like, boom, right at the top center of that middle petal. Oh, already looks like a pansy, kind of. And then we'll do the same thing up here. Remember, we're just going for like a very fun, illustrative look. I think that's really cool. And we could do like a little semicircle. And then I might just make this back petal like ever so slightly darker, so we can add some more pigment. I think that looks good. And then do we want to go around and sort of outline the pansy? I think I do, because as I said, I want this to have this kind of storybook quality where I'm drawing all the flowers. And what I do to keep it really, I guess, whimsical and light is I just don't connect all the lines. Like some of these lines are a little broken, and I love that. Again, personal preference, and you're figuring out what your style is here. Like, how do you like to illustrate when working with gouache? A valid question. One you may not have asked yourself before. Okay. Why don't we do this guy kind of darker and start with an outline? Ooh, that's pretty. That's kind of cool. I'm just making it up as I go along, obviously. I hope you had a wonderful winter break, or I know not everybody takes a break, gets a break. but I hope that your new year is off to a good start. And I would love to know what you think of kind of this more casual style. I've asked, I know, and you have answered. So far, I think the response has been positive, but I'm just checking in. And for some of you, this will be the first video you're seeing that's kind of in this more casual style. So hi, hope you like. You know, before Christmas, I was doing a little bit of this more casual stuff, but I was doing a lot of random crafts because I always get really crafty at the holidays. So now we're back to kind of more of like a regular programming. And so I would like to know what you think at this point. But yeah, we're not getting rid of like all the flowers and the watercolor and the illustration, but doing this more casual style will allow me to definitely show you some of my more random projects, because if I'm putting out 3 or 4 videos a week, you know, I can still do lots of watercolor, but also maybe show you like what I did when I went to the clay painting place, or what I'm doing, you know, for Sully's bedroom or something like that. Because I love doing just random creative projects. I consider myself the most creative in that how am I saying this? My best creative skill is that I love trying new things. Like I'm creative in that way, if you know what I mean, in that I like to, you know, pick up a new medium and just see how it goes. And it doesn't always go good, but I like to give it a shot. There's like a big messy carnation, kind of looks more like a chrysanthemum maybe. Well, you know what? It doesn't have to be a carnation. Maybe it was a chrysanthemum all along. Let's give you like a messy leaf over here. The nice thing is the leaves, I tend to do darker, so you can add them in later. They don't all have to be part of that initial illustration like we did with the dandelion and with this guy. Like actually, I think this one could benefit from another leaf, and it would be so easy to just, you know, go like that. So there we go. You know, you don't have to have those in place. And then this lily of the valley is gonna look so pretty. I feel like I need more space for my swooshing. So let's start with the leaf, which I do want to be really dark and opaque. So I'm just following the line that I laid out. I'm going to use the light blue as just like the veining line. There we go. I think that looks good. Doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going for very imperfect. Storybook, children's storybook. That's what we're thinking. Guys, we should illustrate a book. Wouldn't that be fun? Could like commit to like sitting down every day or like maybe every week and we'll like make illustrations for our children's book. What should it be about? What would it be about? And we'll just do the whole thing with 1 tube of gouache. Ooh, I love that idea. I just love how whimsical and pretty this is. It reminds me of something that I would have really loved as a child. This sort of easy style of illustration that just invites you in. It's not too perfect. It's not too formal, I guess. Maybe that's what I like about it. Okay. And then maybe for a bit of shading, we just do like a little that, like boop, 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 and you're done. Ta-da. And then this little guy over here is just complicated because I don't even know what type of flower it's supposed to be. But maybe, just maybe, there's nothing better than a made-up flower, at least in these parts, at least around here. And yeah, I think I really like that. Just darken them at the center a little. You can do like an X or just a dot at the center of each. And then, ooh, maybe It's like very curly. I love doing little curly cues. And there are its tiny little leaves. It's got little curly Q branches and curly Q leaves. Yeah, I am a big proponent of a made-up flower. I love painting from imagination, as I'm sure many of you know. There we go. Oh, you look so cute. And the nice thing about something like this is you can use it to take up as much space as you need it to. Now, on a sketchbook practice page, we don't have any requirements. However, we are also practicing our composition. So it's sort of nice that we can say, okay, we don't need to go any lower because we don't have anything that high up at the top, but maybe we want to just fill in some space in the center here. I'm still not worried if things don't connect. We're getting like really messy and I like that. And you could have a little, yep, there we go. Yeah, I think that's pretty. Maybe the carnation chrysanthemum hybrid needs another leaf here. Voila. And I think that's about it. I'm really happy with how this turned out. It was a great way to practice and showcase the beauty of gouache and what it can do and how much fun you can have acting kind of as an illustrator and painter. Why don't we finish up by putting a little title here? I'm gonna put my arm in the paint. I knew I was gonna do that. Okay, don't do that. Okay. Hi. Probably should wait for it to dry, but we'll just do like a simple little title in here. Flower practice. You know what? Maybe we just write practice in pen afterwards. This is like, I'm like, I can't. Okay, guys, I was planning to talk more about what is coming up and what is new this year and how my holiday was, but I had a lot to say about this, more than I thought. So I hope I haven't bored you with too much technical detail. Part of what I love about this new format is that I can chat a bit more and we can hang out. So I will just chat a bit more next time I see you and we will do something similar and similarly fun. Okay, I will see you soon. Thanks for hanging out and watching. If you want to do something to support this channel that you love and you don't want to spend any money, all you have to do is subscribe. Subscribing makes a big difference to us around here. So hit that subscribe button and I'll see you soon with a new tutorial. Thanks for watching. Afterwards, I just fiddled around adding some more flowers to help with the overall composition. And what do you know, I did add the word practice with gouache and that number 4 round brush.